Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're into true crime stories told straight up, no distractions, just the story, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and like each video so you don't miss the next case I cover. Alright, let's get into today's story. It all started in the spring of 2018. Jessica Miller, a 34-year-old nurse from Ohio, had lived her life quietly. For years, her world had been defined by 12-hour hospital shifts, fluorescent lights, and the soft beeping of monitors. The patients came and went, the paperwork piled high, and her co-workers rotated in and out, but Jessica remained constant. She wasn't unhappy, not exactly. She loved nursing, the satisfaction of helping someone walk again, the relief of telling a worried family member that their loved one would be okay. But when the shift ended, and she drove home under the hum of streetlights, reality hit. Her apartment was small but tidy. A framed photo of her late mother sat on the mantel. Her golden retriever, Max, wagged his tail furiously at her return every night, the one soul in the world who seemed to notice whether she was home or not. But after she fed Max, after she showered, after she heated up leftovers and ate in silence, the loneliness crept in. It was always worse at night. The glow of her phone screen became her companion. Instagram, Facebook, sometimes Netflix if she could focus. But mostly, dating apps. She swiped left, swiped right, half out of boredom, half out of hope. Jessica wasn't naive. She knew dating apps could be a minefield, ghosting, fake profiles, men who only wanted one thing. But she also knew friends who had found real relationships online. So, she told herself, why not me? Then, one ordinary night in late April, she saw him. Daniel Hart. The profile almost seemed too good to be true. A strong jawline, piercing blue eyes, a smile that radiated confidence. In one photo, he stood in front of a glittering skyline, Dubai, the caption read. In another, he wore a crisp white shirt on the deck of a yacht. Another showed him in a hard hat, standing at an oil rig. His bio read: engineer, traveler, dreamer, looking for something real. Something about him made her pause. He wasn't just attractive, he looked established. A man with purpose, ambition, direction. And then came the message. Not a cheesy pickup line. Not a lazy, hey. Instead, hi Jessica. I couldn't help but notice we share a love for medical dramas. Which one's your favorite? She blinked. Most men didn't even read her profile. But Daniel had. That was the beginning. Over the next few days, they talked constantly. His messages weren't rushed or shallow. He asked about her childhood, her mother, her dreams of one day traveling to Italy. He remembered the details, circling back to them in later conversations. When Jessica mentioned that her mother had passed away 5 years ago, Daniel didn't just say, "Sorry to hear that." He asked her what her mother's name was. Martha, Jessica typed. The next day, on what would have been her mother's birthday, Jessica walked into the nurse's station at the hospital to find a bouquet of lilies waiting for her. The card read, "Thinking of Martha today. Daniel." Her co-workers gushed. "Who's the new guy? Wow, he's a keeper." Jessica blushed, half embarrassed, half elated. It felt like something was finally happening for her. Daniel told her he was an oil engineer based in Dubai, but originally from Texas. His work kept him overseas for months at a time, but he assured her that once his current contract ended, he'd be back in the States. He wanted to meet her in person. Their conversations deepened. They started with texts, then moved to long late-night calls. His voice was smooth, steady, and warm. He told her about his work, managing complicated drilling projects, negotiating with international partners. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had seen the world. Jessica found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told him about the stress of nursing, about the nights she cried in the supply closet after losing a patient. He didn't just listen, he validated her. He told her she was stronger than she realized. That she was a hero. No man had ever made her feel so seen. Within weeks, Jessica was telling friends she had finally found the one. Her best friend, Melissa, was skeptical. "Jess, don't you think it's a little fast? You've never even met him in person." Jessica waved her off. "Not everyone understands. This is real, Mel. I can feel it." The truth was, Jessica was already picturing a future with Daniel. She imagined introducing him to her father, taking Max for walks together, maybe even moving somewhere new, anywhere but Ohio. Daniel made her feel like her life, which had been stuck in gray monotony, was suddenly painted in color. But what Jessica didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Daniel Hart never existed. The man on the other end of the phone wasn't who he claimed to be. And soon, Jessica's quiet life was about to unravel in ways she could never have imagined. Their romance unfolded entirely online. At first, Jessica told herself it didn't matter. Distance was temporary. Love wasn't. And besides, Daniel made up for the miles between them with his attention. He was there every morning with a "Good morning, beautiful." Every night with a whispered, "Sleep well, my love." Hours disappeared into late-night texts. They traded stories, secrets, dreams. He told her about growing up in Texas, about fishing with his grandfather, about the time he broke his arm riding dirt bikes at 12. Jessica shared her childhood too, the treehouse her father had built, the smell of her mother's perfume, the ache of losing her when she was only 29. They laughed together over corny jokes. They even fought once or twice, about silly things, only to make up quickly with sweet words. And then there were the calls. Sometimes they spoke for hours, Daniel's voice deep and steady, comforting in a way Jessica hadn't known she needed. Other times, he would promise a video call. Jessica would brush her hair, put on lip gloss, and wait for the screen to light up. But when it did, the image was never clear. The camera mysteriously glitched. His face would blur, freeze, or cut out altogether. "I don't know what's wrong with my Wi-Fi," Daniel would sigh, frustration lacing his voice. "Babe, I wish you could see me right now. I'm smiling at you." Jessica wanted to believe him. So she did. And then came the promise. "I'll be home soon," he told her one night, his voice soft, like a secret meant only for her. "Once this contract is done, I'll fly straight to you. No more screens, Jess. Just us." She closed her eyes, clutching the phone to her chest, imagining it, meeting him at the airport, his arms wrapping around her, finally touching the man who had already touched her heart. But dreams have a way of shattering. The first request for money came 3 months in. Daniel called, his tone different, tight, anxious. "Jess, baby. I don't want to scare you, but something happened at the site today." Her heart skipped. What happened? There was an equipment accident. Nothing major, thank God. But some local authorities are claiming negligence. They're holding me here until legal fees are settled. Jess, I can't access my US accounts while I'm overseas. Everything's tied up in the company's system. Jessica's stomach tightened. "What do you mean, they're holding you?" "Not jail," he said quickly. "But I can't leave until this is cleared." And Jess, his voice cracked, just enough to sound human. "I hate asking you this. But I need your help. If I could get $5,000 to cover the fees, I'd be free to come home. To you." Jessica froze. $5,000? She didn't have that kind of money lying around. "Daniel, that's a lot." "I know, baby, I know." His words rushed out, desperation coating every syllable. I would never, ever ask if it wasn't life or death. I'll pay you back the moment I land. I swear it on my mother's grave. He sounded so sincere. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. That night, Jessica drained her small savings account and wired the money. But it didn't stop there. One payment turned into 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 10. Each time, the story shifted just enough to sound believable. There was a customs fee. A company delay. A hospital bill after Daniel claimed he'd been injured on site. Once, he even said his passport had been confiscated and he needed money to get it released. And each time, Jessica hesitated. She stared at her bank account, watching the numbers sink lower and lower. But then Daniel would send a message that broke her heart open all over again. Jess, you're the only person I can trust. When this is over, I'll make you the happiest woman alive. We'll get married. I promise. And she would send more. First her savings. Then her credit cards. Then, in a move that made her father's voice echo in the back of her mind, she refinanced her car. By the end of the year, Jessica had sent Daniel nearly $95,000. Her best friend, Laura, saw the signs. Jess, listen to yourself, Laura said one night over coffee. $95,000? For a man you've never even seen properly on video? Don't you think something's off? Jessica bristled. You don't understand him. He's not like other guys. He loves me. Laura's eyes softened. Sweetie, love doesn't ask you to drain your entire life savings. But Jessica shook her head, unwilling to hear it. Because if Laura was right, then everything Jessica had sacrificed wasn't for love, it was for nothing. And Jessica couldn't bear that thought. The months dragged on. Daniel's excuses grew thinner, but his promises grew sweeter. Baby, just one more payment and I'll be free. Baby, I can see the finish line. Baby, I'm coming home. Those words, I'm coming home, became her anchor. Her reason. Every time she questioned him, every time her gut twisted, he dangled that phrase in front of her. Until one night, his voice low and tender, Daniel finally said the words she had been waiting for. Baby. I'm coming home. Jessica cried with relief. The months of sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the empty bank account, it had all been worth it. Or so she thought. It was a rainy night in November. The kind of rain that comes down in sheets, blurring the city lights into a smear of yellow and red. Jessica drove downtown with trembling hands on the steering wheel, her wipers fighting to keep up. Daniel had promised. Finally. This was the night she'd been dreaming about for nearly a year, the night he would step out of fantasy and into reality. No more phone calls. No more glitching video screens. No more waiting. He was here. In Ohio. For her. Jessica had booked a boutique hotel near the river, a place with exposed brick walls and Edison bulbs, the kind of romantic backdrop she'd imagined for their first night together. She checked in, carrying a suitcase filled with carefully chosen outfits, perfume, and the necklace her mother had given her before she died. Inside her room, Jessica stood in front of the mirror for almost an hour, curling and recurling her hair, reapplying lipstick, checking her phone every few minutes for Daniel's text. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she imagined the moment, knocking on the door, opening it, seeing him standing there in the flesh. She wanted to get it right. She wanted this night to be perfect. At 9:41 p.m., she got the message. Babe, I'm outside your room. 304. Jessica's hands shook as she smoothed her dress and crossed the carpet. She took a deep breath, then opened the door. And froze. It wasn't him. Not the chiseled man from the photos. Not the polished engineer she'd pictured for months. Standing in the doorway was a stranger. A middle-aged man, gaunt and pale, with sunken eyes and trembling hands. His hair was unkempt, his shirt damp from the rain. He smelled faintly of cigarettes and something sour. "Jessica?" he asked, his voice raspy. For a split second, Jessica's brain refused to process what she was seeing. Her mouth went dry. Who are you?" she whispered. The man smiled weakly, almost apologetically. "It's me. Daniel." Her stomach dropped. The walls seemed to close in around her. No, you're not." He stepped inside without waiting for permission. "I can explain." What happened next would never be known in full. Only fragments, pieced together from hotel cameras, police reports, and grim evidence left behind. At 9:42 p.m., hotel security cameras showed the man, later identified as Mark Holloway, entering Jessica's room. By morning, it was over. Housekeepers opened the door at 10:15 a.m. and found Jessica lying on the carpet, lifeless. Her body showed clear signs of struggle. The cause of death: strangulation. Her purse was gone. Her phone was missing. Her money, what little she had left, had disappeared. The hotel room was quiet, except for the rain still tapping against the window. Police were called immediately. Detectives pored over the grainy footage. The man's face was clear enough to identify: Mark Holloway, 46 years old. His record stretched back decades: fraud, burglary, multiple prison stints. He was a drifter, in and out of halfway houses, never holding down a job for more than a few months. But this time was different. This wasn't just fraud. This was murder. When police finally tracked Holloway down 3 days later, he was hiding in a rundown motel 2 towns over. He still had Jessica's purse. He still had her phone. And yet, as detectives began their interrogation, a darker truth emerged. Mark Holloway hadn't acted alone. Behind him, pulling the strings, was someone else. Someone who had built the illusion of Daniel Hart. Someone who had written the messages, whispered the promises, and drained Jessica's life savings one payment at a time. Holloway was just the front man, the one who showed up at the end. The real puppeteer? Still out there. And what police would discover next would take the case into territory darker than anyone expected. The interrogation room was cold, its fluorescent lights humming above the scarred wooden table. Mark Holloway sat slumped in the metal chair, his wrists cuffed, his eyes bloodshot. Across from him, Detective Alvarez leaned forward, a file spread open with Jessica's photo staring up like an accusation. "Why Jessica Miller?" Alvarez asked. Mark shook his head slowly. "You don't get it. I never talked to her. Not once." The detective narrowed his eyes. "Then who did?" Mark licked his cracked lips. "The boss. I'm just the collector. That's my job. I show up at the end, take the money, and if there are loose ends," he paused, eyes darting to the two-way mirror, "I tie them up." The room went silent. Jessica's murder wasn't just a crime of passion. It was part of a system. A machine. And Mark Holloway was just one gear in it. When investigators dug deeper, the truth began to unravel. The mastermind wasn't Daniel Hart. Because Daniel Hart never existed. The real puppeteer was a woman, Sophia Klein. A name few people had ever heard, but one that would soon make headlines nationwide. Sophia was no ordinary scammer. She was tech-savvy, meticulous, patient. From behind her computer, she spun digital webs with a dozen fake identities. Male, female, young, old, it didn't matter. With stolen photos, carefully curated backstories, and advanced voice-modifying software, she could be anyone. And for over a year, she had been Daniel Hart. Every message Jessica received, every perfectly timed call, every glitching video feed, it was Sophia. She orchestrated everything from her laptop, weaving lies with the precision of a surgeon. Mark was simply the final act, the one sent to collect. But Jessica wasn't the first. As investigators traced Sophia's digital footprint, they uncovered a chilling pattern. At least 6 women, scattered across the Midwest, had fallen for her elaborate scams. Each one followed the same script. The perfect online romance. The first request for money. The endless cycle of promises and payments. And each woman ended the same way, financially devastated. One victim had lost her retirement savings. Another, her house. A third had even filed for bankruptcy. But Jessica's case was different. Jessica had lost more than money. Jessica had lost her life. The revelation shook everyone who knew her. But for Laura, Jessica's best friend, the news carried an extra layer of horror. Because when detectives traced Sophia Klein's movements, they discovered that she hadn't been operating from some distant country or anonymous city. She had been living just 2 doors down from Laura. Right there. In the same quiet apartment complex where Laura and Jessica shared wine nights, swapped stories, and whispered about Jessica's mysterious boyfriend. All the while, Sophia Klein, the woman who had built Daniel Hart from nothing, had been only steps away. Watching. Listening. Playing both predator and neighbor. It was a detail so chilling, so surreal, that detectives themselves admitted it felt like a movie script. Sophia Klein had managed to live in plain sight, blending in as just another resident. A woman who smiled politely in the hallway, carried groceries up the stairs, waved to neighbors on Sunday mornings. But behind closed doors, she was building identities, luring victims, and destroying lives, all from the glow of a laptop screen. Jessica never stood a chance. And as the investigation deepened, one terrifying question emerged. If Sophia had been operating this close to Laura, had Laura herself been a target? Or worse, had Sophia already begun setting her sights on the next victim? When investigators dug deeper, the case that already felt like something from a nightmare twisted into something almost unbelievable. Sophia Klein, the elusive scammer, the ghost behind the mask of Daniel Hart, wasn't just a random predator. She was family. Records revealed that Sophia and Laura, Jessica's closest friend, shared the same father. Half-sisters. Estranged since childhood. Laura had always known her father had another daughter somewhere out there. A product of a short-lived relationship he rarely spoke about. But she never imagined that the other daughter had been living just down the hall. Never imagined that while she was warning Jessica about an online scammer, the scammer was in fact her own blood. The betrayal cut deep. Laura sat in the courtroom months later, staring across the aisle at Sophia. The same eyes. The same dark hair. A reflection of herself twisted into something monstrous. But the most heartbreaking discovery came not from Sophia, nor from Mark Holloway, but from Jessica herself. On Jessica's phone, detectives uncovered a series of unsent draft messages, words she had typed but never found the courage to send. In them, Jessica began to voice the doubts she had buried for so long. One draft read, "Daniel, sometimes I wonder if you're really who you say you are. I'm scared I've made a mistake." Another, "My friends think I'm being scammed. I don't want to believe them, but sometimes I feel like they might be right." And then, the one that silenced the courtroom when it was read aloud. "If he's not real, I'll walk away tomorrow." She had been so close. One more day. One more night. And Jessica might have walked away, saved herself, reclaimed her life. But Sophia knew. Paranoid, desperate, and unwilling to lose control, Sophia had pulled the final string. She sent Mark, not to love Jessica, not to finally make Daniel real, but to silence her forever. During the trial, Laura broke down on the witness stand. Her voice cracked as she told the jury how she had begged Jessica to stop sending money, how she had tried to protect her, and how she never once imagined that the predator was her own half-sister. Sophia Klein showed little remorse. Her defense argued she had been desperate, that her life had spiraled into manipulation and crime long before Jessica. But the jury didn't buy it. The evidence was overwhelming: the digital trails, the stolen identities, the confessions. Sophia was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Mark Holloway, her accomplice, received 45 years. Justice, in the legal sense, was served. But for Jessica, it came too late. Jessica Miller's story became another grim entry in the long and growing list of online romance scam tragedies. A nurse who had devoted her life to caring for others. A woman who only wanted to be loved. A daughter who still grieved her mother, a friend who had trusted the wrong stranger. She thought she had met the love of her life. Instead, she had walked straight into the arms of her killer. And the cruelest twist of all? The one person who might have saved her, the best friend who warned her again and again, had been living just doors away from the woman who stole everything. So, the next time you think about sharing your heart online, remember this. Not every love story has a happy ending. Some end in heartbreak. Some end in betrayal. And some, like Jessica's, end in tragedy.